Welcome back. It is Wednesday, 1 p.m., the 12th of August. I have a very exciting husband and wife team that will be joining me momentarily from Lake Shaylin, Cairdeas Winery. Let's see if we can pull them up. Let's see. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday. Hello.
Hey, Anthony.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, cannot complain. It could always be worse, I tell you what.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. We've got
Awesome.
blue skies.
That's wonderful. We've got blue skies here as well today. It's going to be a little warm in Napa. I think highs of 87. So it should be nice growing weather. So welcome, Charlie and Lacey Lybecker.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Seriously. When I first started digging deep with all of the different submissions for last year, Cairdeas was one of those wines that came across. I'm like, how are not more people drinking this right now? So for all the people who don't know who you are and what you're all about, could you please give everyone a quick bio background about yourselves in the winery?
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie and I started Cairdeas Winery back in 2009. We were a very small production. We had a grand 150, 200 cases out of our garage because that's how a lot of wineries start. So we're coming up on our 12th vintage this year. We actually started over in the Seattle area, so just south of downtown Seattle. So we are an urban winery. But right after we got started, we realized that we really wanted to be out in wine country somewhere. So in 2012, we moved over to Lake Chelan, which is in north central Washington, be a part of an kind of growing wine region within Washington state. And along the way, we've always loved Rhone varietals. We'll dig into that a little bit more, but really what we do is we pull our inspiration from the Rhone Valley of France. We make wine in that style using Washington fruit. And for those curious about the name, Cairdeas is Irish Gaelic. It's a little nod to my husband and my Irish heritage. And it means friendship or goodwill, which is a word that we thought was fitting for a winery.
Yeah, and teeny tiny winery's gotten just a little bit bigger.
To 5,000 case production right now.
Yeah, so still small, but it's come a long way since we started for sure.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. So why Lake Shaylin, of all places? I remember hearing a story. I think you were kind of torn. It's like there was a coin flip, a coin toss involved, and it's either go back to, was it Minnesota?
Oh my gosh, you remember that? I was like, is he going to bring up Minnesota?
Or stay in Washington?
Well, I grew up in Minnesota and got a chance to go on my first wine tasting tour. When I lived in Minnesota, I was traveling to Australia. And I grew up on a farm, and there was just something about, like, it's farming, but it's so different. It's so much more than that. So when I moved to Washington and met Charlie, I realized that, oh my gosh, I just moved to wine country. And we really kind of delved into wine together, but along the way, so we had started really small and trying to figure out where we wanted to go in wine country. We didn't really want to be an urban winery. We thought we want to be amongst the grapevines.
Yeah, be amongst the grapevines than the skyscrapers and whatnot. And in Seattle, we had this really awesome views of the Puget Sound and of the Cascade Mountains, and we didn't really want to give up our views of the water and the hills as well. And in Lake Chelan, we have both that big, beautiful lake that's literally right across the street from the winery, and we're staring at the foothills of the Cascade Mountains from across the lake. So it's I think Washington State's most beautiful wine country by a long shot. We love it here.
Yeah, and so we knew we wanted to be out in wine country. We actually looked around in Oregon for spots. We looked at Grandview, Prosser, kind of Tri-Cities area. My husband was looking on Wine Business every day, like which properties are for sale. And something popped up in Minnesota, and I was like, no, we live in Washington wine country. Like, why would we want to?
We had to go explore it just to see.
I was like, okay, fine, we'll go visit my family.
I'm really happy that we landed where we did, though. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, and
everything happens for a reason. for sure.
Yeah, we discovered this area because I was working for a hospitality company at the time and doing marketing, and we were doing some consulting on a project here in Lake Chelan, and it was a brand new wine region then. I think there was 13 wineries at the time, but we got to tour a couple when we were here, and I came home from that work trip and I said, Charlie, we got to go check out Lake Chelan. It's a young wine region. We can be a part of the growth of something instead of being just like the 500th winery in Walla Walla or another, more established wine region. So yeah, it was just really calling for us, and we absolutely love living here. It's such a great community, and it is fun to be a part of this wine region.
Awesome. I think you've chosen wisely. What I see with Walla Walla is overall, like from a tourist standpoint, things have gotten better. The restaurants have gotten better. There's an airport to fly into. So if you wanted to like fly in but the thing is it's beautiful. There's some mountains there, but if you think about the context of what Walla Walla is, just winemaking aside and style aside, of the overall countryside, Lake Chelan basically promises the same, and it actually has proximity to water, which will mitigate the temperatures a little better, and you actually can draw from the ground if you need to pull that water.
Right, exactly. We literally irrigate our vineyards with water from Lake Chelan, which is pretty cool. The other thing that was really intriguing about Lake Chelan is just the terroir and how it's so much different than everywhere else in Washington State. Because we're so far north, we're north central Washington. Yeah. Where we are in Lake Chelan was not flooded by Lake Missoula. So almost every other wine region in Washington State is basically on black basalt as the underlying bedrock. And where we are in Lake Chelan, we have granite-based soils. So it makes our growing region so much more unique than everywhere else in Washington, because we are in a completely different soil type in Lake Chelan than the Yakima Valley, than the Wahluke Slope, than Walla Walla. And so that gives us some unique things to work with as well.
Yeah.
For sure. I was talking soil and getting geeky with Christophe Baron a little bit ago, and he had said he had looked around for different properties, and he was curious about Lake Chelan, and one thing that caught his attention and his eye for Lake Chelan was the granite. He's like, "There's granite there. Like that's so cool."
Yeah.
We started getting super geeky about soils and whatnot.
Yeah, so obviously where he's at, they have cobble. We are we're based on granite cobble, so our vineyard is planted in that granite cobble, and I think it just offers a really unique perspective to our place.
Nice, for sure. That also does farewell to the different varietals that you have going on. So let's talk about the focus of your efforts with the Rhone varietals. What initially intrigued you about working with as many Rhone varietals as you do currently?
Right. So when I first fell in love with Washington wine, Lacey's the one that got me to fall in love with Washington wine. And when I first fell in love with Washington wine
in general.
Yeah, I fell in love initially with Viognier and with Syrah without even knowing that those were both from the Rhone. And when we discovered that they were both from the Rhone, I just kind of wanted to know what other varieties came from that region. And that led us to trying varieties like Grenache and Mourvèdre, and even leading us further down the rabbit hole and seeking out producers who worked with Counoise and Sanso and Carignan.
And this was all pre even making wine and kind of the early stages of winemaking as well. Yeah. So this was all just us sipping on wine.
And I loved how those varieties have this really nice balance where the wines don't have to be super powerful to be impactful. They can have this really nice kind of more delicate, elegant, nuanced complexity to them without knocking you over the face with big alcohol or needing to be covered up with a lot of brand new French oak, and really just letting the terroir from the vineyards and the uniqueness of those varieties kind of shine through the wines. And so that's what really made us want to follow all of the traditions of the Rhone and work with those varieties.
Cool.
We'd be lying if we said we didn't ever work with any other varietals. Our first couple of years, we worked with a lot of different things, but we always knew that those Rhone varietals were our favorite. And so there was this aha moment in, was it 2012?
Yeah.
That we were like, why are we making a cab? And why did we try making Merlot? Let's just let all of those go and just become
focus on what we really want to do.
I think that's really when we kind of started pushing ourselves to the next level, and we just really kind of fell into our niche in the wine industry.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm fully a complete advocate for people following their passion. If someone once told me, if you want to make a lot of money, it's very easy. The only thing to do is to only want to make a lot of money. But if you want to be happy in life and be successful, follow your passion, follow your heart, because if you're passionate about it, you'll always want to do it, and you'll do it well, and everything will fall into place. The money will come, and you'll be far more happier than you decided to just follow your heart and choose your passion.
I love that.
And you're right. I mean, we ask ourselves this all the time, like, would we choose this path over again? And without hesitation, we always say absolutely. I mean, maybe there's more efficiencies along the way, but no, we would absolutely do this again. It's we love it.
I used to work in a cubicle on the 16th floor of a high-rise building in downtown Seattle, and now I get to spend my day in the vineyard. So this is a good move.
Wise choice.
Yeah.
So all this talk about wine is making me thirsty. We've got some delicious juice to check out.
So do we. Hey.
Fantastic. So why don't you go ahead and introduce the wine and talk a little bit about it, if you would.
Absolutely.
And where the name came from, of course.
Absolutely. So this is my personal favorite wine that we make. Obviously, pulling our inspiration from the Rhone Valley, I absolutely fell in love with the wines from Chateauneuf and Gigondas. And so we were really searching for the right vineyard to make a wine in a similar style. I'm not going to say we're trying to replicate a Chateauneuf, because in Washington we're working in a different climate, but we wanted to be true to that Southern Rhone kind of blend and find one vineyard that had as many different Rhone varieties to work with from the same piece of ground.
Pretty difficult in Washington State.
Really hard in Washington State, and we're very fortunate that we got to partner up with the Bouchers. And this is a blend of 5 different grapes. We have Grenache Noir, Mourvèdre, Syrah, Cinsault, and Counoise, all coming from the lower Yakima Valley in one blend, vineyard-specific blend. I absolutely love working with Dick and Luann. They are like some of the nicest people on the face of the planet, and they're also some of the best grape growers in Washington State. Dick's really a pioneer and a huge advocate for Rhone varieties, and we're so fortunate to be able to work with them. And to have this wine coming from their vineyard is a really special thing for me, because it's really expressive of their piece of land. One of the things I have always loved about the Boucher vineyard is that those wines are so, you could smell a wine from the Boucher vineyard and you know that it's from that place, because it has that distinct of a sense of place. And so I just love that even from the nose, you know that this is a Boucher wine. When you get into the tasting the wine, it's everything that I love about a wine. You have some fruit, you have some earth, you have some spice. There's just a lot going on with this one.
There's some fun, I always get bay leaf on the nose, some kind of fun herbal things going on, but not overly green, just really subtle.
Correct. I get exactly what you're talking about. To me, that's more like wild strawberry, where it's slightly leafier.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of that kind of soft, soft kind of dried spice there as well, dried herbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's delicious. And then through the mid palate, it goes in kind of soft and fruity, and then over time it starts to unfold and it becomes totally into focus. And you're like, what? How did this just happen?
Yeah.
There's a spice note, a smokiness, the texture. It just, it's cool.
Yeah, it builds and it sits there, and you just want to, you almost discover, like with every sip, you're discovering more, but within that sip, there's more that comes out.
And I was so happy that we were able to open this bottle today because I haven't tried one in a while myself. And
yeah, we are actually sold out of the 16.
Every time I open one, it's got something there that wasn't there the last time I tried it. So I'm loving watching this wine evolve over time as well.
For sure. Yeah, I've got a couple in my cellar still, so I will let them sit and age and open them appropriately. So tell us what it's like working with Dick and Luann Boucher. I mean, they're such staples to the history of Washington, current Washington wine growing. I had a chance to talk to Dick now going on a little over 5 years ago, 5 years ago. And we had a really interesting conversation about water rights and where global warming is headed, because the Boucher Vineyard is not a small piece of land. There's quite a large number of different vines and plantings there, and he's experimenting. He even has hops growing in Boucher Vineyard, if I remember correctly.
Surrounding it, yeah. Well, in the Yakima Valley, I think a majority of the world's hops are actually grown down there. So it's so interesting going to that vineyard during the harvest season because you're surrounded by all of these different smells. And the smell of the hop farms, smell of the hop farms during harvest is, I love that smell. It smells like fresh IPA, and I love IPA. So it's a delicious smell in the air, for sure.
Nice.
So working with Dick and Luann is really awesome. Like you said, they're kind of pioneers in this most recent part of Washington wine history, and they're so involved on such a statewide level. They're kind of inspiring in that way, really leading the charge. He'll just tell you he's a simple farmer, but I mean he really both Dick and Luann, like they are pushing for some really great things in Washington wine still.
They care so much about the quality of the fruit coming from their vineyard that they work harder than any other vineyard manager that I've ever partnered with. From the moment fruit set happens to the way they tend their vines, and even the attention to detail on the day that we pick. Oftentimes Luann will literally be out following our pick bins that are on the tractor, and she will be hand sorting the fruit going into my bins as the pickers pick the fruit, and she'll toss anything that she thinks doesn't look good. She'll pick it out of the bins and toss it on the ground. And I've never had any of our growers care that much about what's going into our bins that will come back to the winery. And so their attention to detail and appreciation for quality is second to none.
Well, and they know that their name is going on that bottle of wine. Actually, you have to ask for permission to put Boucher Vineyard on the bottle. So when we got that thumbs up, we're like, okay, we made it. But yeah, no, their reputation is super important, and they work with. They're really picky about who they work with. So we feel honored. We feel honored that we get to work with their fruit. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me, what do you have planted on your property currently that you
crazy stuff?
Yeah, so we grow some Syrah because we work with more Syrah than anything else, but our Syrah is planted high density. We're 6x3 and it's head trained, so it's almost twice as many vines per acre as the more traditional plantings, at least in Washington State. But then with our two white varieties, we decided that if we were going to plant something, let's plant something crazy that you literally can't find many other places. From anywhere. Yeah, so we grow Claret Blanche, and we make a Brut Nature Method Champenoise sparkling wine with our estate Claret.
Which is, we kind of pulled our inspiration on that one from Cremant de Die in the Die region of the Rhone Valley.
And then we also planted Picardin, which is a cross between Claret Blanche and Picpoul Blanc. And it's really known for its racy acidity, which I super love in the hot months. That really bright acid makes a super fun wine. And last year was our first vintage of releasing our estate Picardin, and it was a delicious wine, and we can't wait to do it again.
And I just realized that I don't think you've tasted either of those wines.
No. I haven't tried. No, not your sparkling, not your Picardin. No.
Yeah.
We'll have to get
and then
you
the
some.
Syrah's first release will be next year, so we'll make sure that you get a chance to taste through those. They're just super fun wines. They sold out. We don't have a large quantity because our estate vineyard's not super big, but we released those in June and they were gone in June. Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. Tell you what.
Yeah, better a few problems.
Awesome. So working with all these different Rhone varietals, which is your favorite to work with and why?
I would say probably Syrah. Even though I love working with some of the lesser known Rhone varieties, Syrah I think is so expressive of its terroir. I think more so than any of the other varieties that we work with, because we literally work with 4 different clones of Syrah from many different sites. And Joseph Phelps clone Syrah is not Joseph Phelps clone Syrah. It's Joseph Phelps clone Syrah from Boucher. And it's Joseph Phelps clone Syrah from Lawrence, and it's Joseph Phelps clone Syrah from our estate, and they're vastly different wines. And so I love the way that Syrah specifically expresses the ground in which it was grown, and really lets us play with highlighting the uniqueness of the land in which those grapes are from, and highlight those differences in each of the wines we put them in. It's a really fun one.
Yeah, we're really intentional about which Syrah goes in which blend. We feel like we kind of dial that in every year. Like we know that the Lawrence Vineyard, Joseph Phelps clone goes into our concrete Syrah. Obviously the Boucher Syrah goes into the Cochelain Papa. So we're super intentional about that. Of course, we always try when we experiment with the different blends, but they always seem to kind of have their home. Yeah.
That's cool. One thing that I've seen happening with Washington Rhone varietals is a lot of producers are starting to experiment with different mediums, trying amphora, trying concrete. I think that you've discovered the concrete wave, and you submitted the concrete Syrah earlier this year.
Yep.
Which was delicious. It had that mineral tension that you just can't get from oak. It just adds a tight layer that keeps the fruits kind of locked, pure and fresh, with that basically showcases the kind of crunchy minerality that I enjoy with for a food wine.
I love that description. We're gonna hire you to write all of our tasting notes. That was it that you just described.
Yeah,
concrete Syrah.
So concrete, I think really it showcases exactly what you said. It showcases purity, and it showcases freshness. And so it is the most pure expression of Syrah from Lawrence Vineyard that you can have in that concrete tank, because there's not a lot going on. There's, very little micro ox happening through concrete, not nearly as much as you get through barrels. You're not picking up any oak lactones or aromas, and it's not influencing the nose of the wine or the flavor profile of the wine and all. But you get that really tight layer of that minerality from the concrete, which I think is gorgeous. And that wine specifically, I think, is a wine that is very age-worthy and is one of those wines that will uncover more layers as it kind of evolves, because it has so much tightness up front that it needs more time almost to evolve. And so we're really excited to see the development of that wine over the course of time. I mean, we're drinking the 2018 Concrete Syrah right now. 17 was our first vintage working with those tanks, and we're excited to get more years of use under our belts with those tanks and kind of develop and kind of really dial in that program. And
we're still learning.
Make it more what we want it to be, for sure.
We also do some white wine fermentation in concrete as well. We did a couple different things with our Marsanne this year. It was a Boucher Vineyard Marsanne. We fermented it in concrete, and then how many barrels? We did a few barrels of brand new French oak. Some with acacia
wood heads,
and then the rest went to stainless steel.
And kind of worked with 3 different mediums on that one, and it was fun to see how each of those vessels kind of brought something unique to the final blend in that wine. But with the whites, I love how even with white wines with really bright acidity, how fermenting it in concrete really takes the sharp edges off of that acidity. Mm-hmm. So the brightness of the acid is still there, but the wine feels softer on your palate because it's been in concrete, which is something I absolutely love about the concrete, is that softness that you get on the texture of the wine from the concrete.
For sure. I agree. I think ultimately it will play to the longevity of the wine, taking your run varietals where you are into concrete. I think you're doing. I think you're experimenting with the right tools right now. So
we
excited to see where they end up.
Production facility, so we can get some more concrete.
We're very interested in amphora as well. In fact, I'm
a drunken turtle is in our future.
Very anxiously awaiting, a drunken turtle and playing with the cocchio pesto, where you get that mix of some terracotta and some Italian marble, as well as some concrete. So I'm really looking forward to playing with that as well. So there will be more experimenting in our future.
Because you know what, we can't. There's always something to do, something to learn. I mean, that's the beauty of winemaking, is you're not like, oh, I got that down, I'm done, we're good. Mike, drop the mic. There's literally always something you can be learning. I think that's especially for Charlie's personality. He has such a curious personality. Like, that's something that is really good for him. Yeah, I
think that's really the best way to go about life, is to always remain curious about things.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Always see how you can make things better.
Yeah.
Speaking of making things better, you've got additional buildings going up on your property. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're building a proper tasting room. So our piece of land that we purchased back in end of 2013, 6 acres, and it had just a couple buildings on it when we bought it, and we very shortly after built like a larger barrel house. We had converted a kind of a garage into our tasting room. So that's what we've been using for a while. But we've had this idea for the style of tasting room for, the last 10, 11, 12 years. And it's a barn style building. It's a gambrel barn. And it's 2 stories, kind of a general tasting on the lower level. We've got a nice big patio. It really takes advantage of our view of Lake Chelan, which is amazing. And then we do have a second story, and we're going to do a little bit more loungy, kind of feels like your kitchen in your living room, wine club loft up on the second floor with a nice big deck. So really just kind of take the Cairdeas experience to the next level here at the winery.
And it's got a lookout tower.
And Charlie has a lookout tower.
Nice.
He is letting me have an office in there, which is very different.
But the tower is mine.
Yeah. So it's like the man cave. Charlie gets the lookout.
Yeah, there's going to be a spiral staircase to a little desk at the top with a bottle of wine and a notebook and a place to think deep thoughts and all that.
Nice. You should have power up there so you can have like a little mini fridge and just kind of pop and go as you need.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Stop giving him ideas.
Well,
when we planted our vineyard, we left space to basically put this tasting room right in the middle of the vineyard. So it's pretty cool. It overlooks our Syrah vines and the Picardin and of course Lake Chelan. And once we wrap up that project, I hinted about this earlier, but we are running out of production space. And if we want to get more concrete eggs, we're going to need to expand. So our next big project here is to expand the production buildings.
Yeah, build a new production facility next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hope that goes well for you, and I can't wait to be able to hit the road again and check out the new building.
Come see the finished building.
For sure. So let's talk about the esoteric varietals that you're growing. So you've got, as you said, Picardin, and you have Claret Blanche. Are there any other crazy esoteric varietals, Rhone varietals that you would like to work with that you're not currently working with, or that you would like to perhaps somehow bring over long term from France, go to quarantine and plant one day?
Yeah, well, we keep bugging Dick and Luann to plant Beurre Blanc, and I know that Dick really, every time he's like, I would love to plant some Beurre Blanc, and I'm like, you do it, we'll take it.
Yes.
Let's get this in writing. So that's one that we are really interested in working with, and we recently stumbled upon a varietal called Marcelon, and
Yeah,
it's
Marcelon,
a cross, yeah, it's a cross between Grenache and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Mhm.
And they do use that varietal in the Rhone Valley, in the southern Rhone
In the Côte du
Valley,
Rhône,
in the Côte du Rhône. We were recently able to, I think it was Sextant Wines down in Paso makes a Marcelon, and so we grabbed a few bottles of that, and it kind of reminds me a lot of Petite Syrah.
Yeah, it's a really intriguing variety that has some brightness in the acidity and some massive structure, and it's a variety that I think I would like to experiment with and play with. So we're talking about planting a half acre or so on our property here, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
There's more out there.
Right.
To talk to.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about these, esoteric varietals, that there's not necessarily a market for them, but people try them and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. What is this? And then it only piques their interest and their curiosity to try something else, and opens up their vision and their frame of reference to all these different varietals that are all similarly connected and have a very interesting history.
Well, I think that sometimes people don't realize, they get stuck in kind of their tunnel, and they don't venture out, and they don't get to try other varieties and experiment, and they're missing out on the fact that, there's probably 300 proper wine grape varieties in the world, and they drink 10 of them. So it's fun to try something different, try something that you maybe have never had before, or made in a different style, or made in a different way, or aged in a different vessel. And that's what makes wine exciting for us.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the Picardin. We actually had a wine writer contact us a couple of years ago, and they said, why Picardin? I think there's only maybe 6 vineyards in the country that grow Picardin. And the title of the article was "Move Over Chardonnay. Picardin's like the next big thing." And I was like, well, I don't know about that. But she asked, why take the risk with Picardin? Do you think there is a market for it? And honestly, no, I don't think anybody's specifically seeking out Picardin, but we have some loyal Cairdeas fans that they trust what we do with the other wine that we make, that when we introduce something new to them, they're on board already. They don't even need to know if they like Picardin or have never tried Picardin before.
And they
just trust
fun.
What we do. And
it's fun and exciting.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So that was a funny one.
Awesome. I understand where you're coming from, for sure, and I'm glad that you've taken the chance on it, because what people don't realize, what most consumers don't realize, is that owning a winery is still a business, and you still have to make money at it. And if you get too geeky and you make stuff that no one knows or can't pronounce, they don't buy it. So thank you for having the courage to say, what, this is cool, check it out.
Yeah. Thanks.
So speaking of owning a winery, you have got children as well. Do you hope? Say again?
I said we do. Where are they?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Are there any hopes for your kids or family members to take over the winery one day and keep it in the family?
Yeah, I mean, our kids can be whatever they want, and right now they're 6 and 8, and they want to be policemen and firefighters, and that's great, or baseball players.
Authors.
We would love for our children to want to take over the winery. It's kind of, it may be a pipe dream, but it would be a dream come true for me to live long enough to watch one of my grandchildren take over the winery. I would love to create that kind of old Italian legacy with our estate. I mean, we'll see where the world takes us, but that would be the dream.
Really, what I want to make sure that our kids know is that if to, I guess, give them the courage to kind of go after their dreams as well. They see us working hard, and they see us doing things that are outside the box. My mom owns her own business, and so I always thought, I'm going to own my own business someday too. I didn't know what it would be, but she kind of was that driving force to push us to keep moving forward. And so really, if we can do that for our children, that I'll be happy with that. But we do, wherever Cairdeas goes in the future, I want to make sure that we're building something that, you know, is a legacy, whether it stays in the family or moves to someone else, or, you know, whatever that is. Like, we're building something that people are going to want to hold on to.
That's an important lesson, because I think, you know, we're all kind of almost taught in a way as we're coming up that we need to fit into a certain type of lifestyle, and that may not be the case. And I think that there are very few people that are courageous enough to follow their dreams, and I'm happy that I had a wife that was very supportive of leaving a more traditional job and starting a winery and diving into the deep end and hoping we could learn how to swim. And I definitely want my kids to take that with them as well.
First off, I think you're very good parents for acknowledging that, because too many times parents want their kids to follow in their footsteps, and they plan the child's life for them. You know, if had that been pushed upon me, I would be a weatherman right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother wanted me to be a weatherman, and I took a meteorology course in college, and thought it was utterly and completely boring. But it allowed me to find the subject of physics, and I still love physics. I learned all the calculus in the world, and I still use a small variation of the math that I learned on a day-to-day basis. But it's one of those things where you've got to, I think the best way to be is to just be curious, discover, and find what your passion will be, and just follow that. And that's
Yeah.
I'm glad that you acknowledge that.
Anthony, we're very happy you found wine.
Yeah.
I think that was a good path. I could see you as a weatherman, but I like you as a
professional drinker. That's for sure. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about it. I'm very happy I found wine too. If you put beer in my glass, or whiskey, or sake, or sherry, like, I don't discriminate. I'm gonna be your friend.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Yeah, we don't discriminate against craft beverages.
Yeah.
When it comes to beer, I tend to shy away from the IPAs, but I definitely gravitate towards the Belgian ales that are bigger, fuller bodied, higher alcohol, that have robust fruit notes and a lot of ethers to them. So I made a point to taste as white as possible, and in doing so, I taste a large number of Lake Chelan wines. I think Cairdeas is clearly the beacon at the top right now that is holding the
so much.
But with that, I feel that you have a kind of platform currently to help others kind of find the way. I also see potential for the region. Right now, it's not necessarily well known. When you talk about Washington, very few people talk about Lake Chelan as is. Most people gravitate towards either Yakima or Walla Walla or Red Mountain within that, or just the overall kind of blanket Columbia Valley. I don't find too many people, talking about Lake Chelan so much. Where do you see the region gaining more notoriety moving forward into the future?
Yeah, it was exciting for us to kind of be a part of the development of this AVA. We weren't in at the ground level, but we were pretty shortly after.
We were kind of in the second wave. I think we were winery number 19 in the Chelan Valley.
And I think that, people are really still experimenting with what grows well here. I think that we have proven that Lake Chelan Syrah can be a really special thing. We have some neighbors that are doing some really amazing things with some Cabernet Franc in a little bit more of a lighter style that kind of reminds me more of the wines from like Chinon. But, I think that we're still trying to discover what our signature is. And, for us at Cairdeas, we've decided that that's our own varieties, and maybe focusing on some of these more rare whites, and then growing Syrah in a very traditional way, but it's not common in Washington State with the high density and the head train. But, I think that our area has massive potential, and I think it will grow into something like what we see in Walla Walla, but that's something that's like 30 years down the road. And so we can kind of help guide that become what what we want it to be, at least for our little piece of land. Yeah, so we're excited to be a part of the Lake Chelan Wine Valley. I think I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. I think that we are living in the most gorgeous piece of wine country in Washington State. So it's an amazing place to live, but we're also growing some pretty good wine grapes here too.
Yeah, and we're excited to increase our own percentage of Lake Chelan AVA grapes here, you know, in our production, or in our program, our winemaking program, because we love, I mean, we work, like we said, with Dick and Luann Boucher. We love Washington wines in general, and so really focusing on the Rhone varietals, blends, but also very specific places, and you know, being able to put Lake Chelan on the label more often is something that we're really looking forward to as we kind of dial in our own estate vineyard and really discover some incredible vineyard partners here in Lake Chelan. We have some amazing ones, and we're excited to kind of start releasing those wines here in the next couple of years.
Awesome. So do you foresee yourself purchasing more vineyard land, or working with more Lake Chelan fruit moving forward?
So I think both. I think both is the answer to that. We have some more acreage we can plant on our property. We've also partnered with a third-generation orchardist here in Manson, and he took out a block of apples and came to me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about, you know, growing some grapes. Is there something that you would like to see?" And so we planted the AVA's first Petite Syrah 3 years ago, and we'll see our first crop off of that vineyard next year. And so doing little experimental blocks like that is a lot of fun. We're talking about planting some more Grenache here in Lake Chelan on that orchard property next year. And so we're hoping to expand our footprint and get more Rhone varieties growing here in the valley.
I think that's our biggest challenge, is because we are so Rhone specific, and wanting to focus on the wine first. We did want to plant our own estate vineyard, but outside of where we are, there's, other than Syrah, there's not a ton of Rhone varietals being planted here. And so it's kind of getting ahead of those growers who are ready to plant a vineyard, and really partnering with them to say, hey, this is what we'd like to see. This is what we want to work with.
Talking them out of growing Cabernet,
Cab Franc, Chardonnay, Sauv Blanc,
planting some more interesting varieties.
Yeah.
True.
So we're getting there for sure.
Yeah, I've sampled quite a few number of Cab and Cab Franc and Sauvignon Blanc from the region, and I don't think it will ever be. It's good at best. I don't think it will ever be great. And I think what you're doing with your attention to detail to your land, your understanding of how your varietals grow on your property, you seem to be very thoughtful, very mindful of the property, of nature. And ultimately, I think moving forward, I think higher density plantings, like 3x6 or even 3x3, if you want to push it that much, with minimal oak, I think makes a lot of sense for the region. And just overall, I think for Washington Syrah and Washington Grenache, I think you're going to start to see a lot more higher density plantings being planted that way over the next 20 years. I think it's a shift that's slowly moving that way, and it makes sense because you ultimately, it gives you a pop and a freshness that you just don't get with standard planting 6x6.
Right.
Well, yeah, I know there's one other Syrah vineyard in the valley that's planted in the same way that our estate vineyard is, which was really exciting for us to see.
Somebody else trying it too.
But we actually, there was a WSU study, and they planted Syrah
on a traditional 5x8 VSP. And then they planted in the same ground a head-trained block and vinified the wines the same way. And the experiment was to see, did the trellising style make a difference in the way the wines tasted? It absolutely did. And I actually preferred the head-trained vine Syrah over the VSP Syrah. So, that's what sold us. And I was like, I'm in. Like, let's do it. So let's pack as many vines in this acreage while still being able to, that 6 foot rows to just get our little a 4-foot tractor, a little teeny tiny 4-foot tractor through those rows.
Yeah.
But yeah, we absolutely love it and are going to be doing more of it for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Sweet. I had no idea that WSU had a experiment like that. So that's cool that you guys got to check that out, and what basically helped you influence your decision to do what you're doing now. So
yeah, we're lucky in Washington State. I mean, there's we have access to such great research in so many different areas of winemaking and grape growing, and I think Charlie's got a few professors on speed dial, which is nice. I mean, it's so great to have all those resources.
It's great for our industry in Washington State to have them.
Absolutely.
Because they help us all.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So where do you ultimately see the brand, your brand, in 20 years' time?
Oh, so funny. 10 years ago, Charlie and I had these big dreams of, okay, we're going to, have a property in Lake Chelan, and we're going to have this style of tasting room. We're going to maybe have this many wine club members. We had all these goals, and we feel like we are kind of coming upon those, like our tasting room is being built, and we've kind of hit all of these. I don't know. At first, we're like, we're not going to make any more than 2,500 cases of wine. Okay, no more than 3,000. Okay, no more than 35. And now we're at 5,000. But moving forward, we always want to think bigger than Lake Chelan, and maybe even bigger than Washington State. We really want to get Cairdeas out to more places within Washington. I mean, right now we sell 95% of our wines directly to our wine club and through the tasting room, which is great. And our distribution side is growing, and we'd like to just get to more places.
It's hard when the wine buyer from a restaurant in New York wants to know how to get our wine, and we don't have a great answer for them. So that's an area where we're hoping to see some growth and improve on, because there's been some opportunities that we've missed out on just because our production is so small. We weren't able to be a part of that. But if you travel and you're at a nice restaurant in New York and you want a bottle of Cairdeas wine, I want it to be on that list.
That'd be so cool. Yeah, that would be awesome.
So I think that's in our 20-year plan.
Yeah,
for sure.
And really, just kind of beyond the brand. I mean, Charlie and I really, like we were referencing Dick and Luann earlier, how they're really involved on a statewide scale. Like, we want to be the same. Like, we want to be really help driving not only Lake Chelan, but Washington State wine, and then even being involved in bigger kind of national projects and events like Hospice du Rhone, like really promoting Rhone varietals. So we just want to get more involved and kind of be an inspiration for new winemakers that are starting, and just really help kind of drive the industry and just be a force.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you're hungry. Stay hungry.
We'll try. Yeah. We're still a young winery.
For sure. So when you're not drinking your own wine, what are you drinking? What do you reach for?
Well, lots of things is the easy answer.
He started a list and he had to stop.
I mean, obviously, we fell in love with the Rhone, and so there's a really there's a soft place in my heart for Chateauneuf and Gigondas. Those are kind of the bottles that I grab for when we're going back to Côte du Rhône Village wines. Love Vaccaras as well. Had an opportunity to explore Vaccaras last April, which was great, and really fell in love with a couple of producers there. And then in Washington State, the inspiring wineries that we are kind of following are, Greg Harrington and Brandon Moss at Gramercy are doing a killer job. Morgan at Two Vintners is doing a killer job. Jeff at WT Vintners is doing a killer job. We love visiting Paso because there's a good handful of wineries in Paso that love Rhone varieties and are doing great work. Booker is amazing. McPrice Myers is one that we recently kind of came upon and loved them. We ran into this little tiny place called Delecta, and they had some really awesome Syrahs.
Brand new winemaker. Well, not brand new winemaker, but Delecta was a new brand.
Yeah,
that was really fun.
Yeah, so those are kind of like off the top of my head. Those are ones that stick out.
I really like seeking out, going back to those esoteric Rhone varietals. I love, I'll randomly search for like Beurre Blanc or Grenache Gris, or I stumbled upon that Marcelon. We found a producer down in Sonoma County that was making Grenache Gris, which you don't see anywhere. So that was really intriguing to me. So I like
Uni Blanc.
Uni Blanc is another one. So I love seeking out those kind of unique varietals, whether it's Rhone varietals or otherwise, just things that you don't get to try very often. That's what I'm always kind of on the hunt for. But yeah, the ones that Charlie mentioned, like those are the wines that we stock in our personal cellar, and that's what, you know, we want to open at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's Uni Blanc, Colombard, those varietals. They're planted, I think, far more than people really know, but they're typically blended into other things. Here in California, especially.
Yeah.
Talking about Marcelon again, there's a producer or two in Arizona where I'm from that grows. It makes a little bit more sense there because the grape can take a little bit more heat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about, I don't think if you were to grow Marcelon where you are, it would not taste like the Sexton from Paso.
No. Right.
It would taste probably more like a bigger Grenache.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yeah, as we were tasting through that Marcelon, we were kind of talking about what we think ours would taste like.
Right. Well,
comparison.
And in Paso, it's so interesting too, being so close to the coast and having the diurnal shift, and even with the heat of the day, but as much as they cool down in the evenings, a lot of those grapes hang on to their acidity for a lot longer than even some of the varieties that we grow here without the same sugar development. So it's an interesting shift in the chemistry of the juice when you're bringing it into the winery, which is a great conversation I had with some of the wineries down in Paso. I had no idea kind of the chemistry of the must at harvest and how different it was than what we're used to in Washington. But again, that's what makes each of these own areas so unique and so interesting. And what does your growing climate have to offer that finished wine, and how did it influence it along the way?
For sure. Yeah, that's one thing, is to try and figure out, here's what I like, here's where I am. If I plant it here, it's not going to taste like that, but it's going to capture where I am, capture the terroir, capture the expression, and have, its Ludi expression. This is what the site tastes like with this varietal. And I think that is one of the most important things to capture for a single varietal and a single vintage bottling, is to capture that freshness, that integrity, that sincerity of the expression. Because those to me are some of the most rewarding wines. And that's not to say, champagne is bad because they blend from multi-vintages, from different varietals. Give me champagne today, I will drink it.
Right. I like bubbles.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So thank you so much. I know it's getting close to the hour, and Instagram likes to kick people off before the hour is over. Thank you for joining me. I know you both are very busy. You've got kids running around, and I know you probably have the tasting rooms open and building construction is going on. So
do you hear all those noises?
Yeah, I heard cars coming and going on gravel.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But thank you so much for connecting today. Before we adjourn, do you have any parting thoughts, last words, or anything you want to say to the world?
To the world.
Yeah, just that this has been a wild journey, and we are so blessed and fortunate to be on it together. I couldn't have asked for a better partner to do this with. I, like you, Anthony, I'm so happy that I found wine instead of maybe going down that more traditional path. We're very blessed to do what we do, and we super appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. It's a huge honor for us, so thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a huge honor we just do what we love every day, and for people to recognize that is it's a total dream come true. We couldn't have imagined sitting here with you 10 years ago. So a nice little bonus to the initial 10-year plan.
Well, I hope today's chat makes up for not being able to meet in person earlier this year, because you guys were on the roster to connect with in person in May, and then the entire world just shut down.
Everything flipped upside down. Well, we are hopeful that you'll get to come visit us sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice touching base with you regardless, whether it's in person or online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. For other viewers, keep it locked here. Next Wednesday, we continue the search for the new up-and-comers from Washington State and South Africa. Until then, stay safe, drink well, and be kind to others.
Cheers.
Cheers.